Have you ever wanted to be a host on an ACA show or be the one calling the shots behind the scenes? Are you in Austin, Texas, or at least Austin adjacent? Well, on Saturday, February 25th, make your way down to the Free Thought Library because we'll be holding open auditions for show hosts and orientations for prospective crew members. For those wanting to be hosts, you'll be able to sit in the studio where our shows are broadcast and we'll put you through your paces to see if you can be one of the new personalities of the ACA. For future crew members, you'll get hands-on experience using the equipment used for broadcast and will help us record the host auditions. If you've ever dreamed of being part of the ACA productions, then this is your chance to show us what you've got. This event is free. For more information and registration, visit tiny.cc/ACA auditions.
Namo tasso bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. No, I'm only kidding. We're not doing the Parley show today. We are, in fact, doing Talk Heathen. Hello and welcome. Today's Sunday, February the 19th, 2023, and I am your host, Richard Gilliver. And joining me today is the fantastic Katy Montgomerie. Katy, how are you doing? Katy, I can't hear you.
I'm so sorry. Hi, Richard. I'm doing great, thanks. How are you? And now I'm making noise too.
I'm very, very good. I'm glad to we're starting with a proper Johnny Angel moment with ourselves muted. So today we have a live calling show, as we are every week, and we have open lines. So get your calls in at 512-991-9242 or for your computer at tiny.cc/callth. Before we get started, we want to introduce a new segment called Talk Heathen to Me. Each week, we will be asking you, the audience, a question that you can respond to in the comments section of the video, not in the live chat. Next week, we will pick our favorite 3 responses and show them from the beginning of that episode, and then give you a new question for next week. The question for this week is, what weird ritual would you use if you invented your own religion? Comment at Talk Heathen to me, and next week we will reveal the top 3 answers. But I'm interested in what Katy thinks about this. What weird ritual would you use if you invented a religion, Katy?
I don't need to say what if I invented a religion, because I already have my own religion, my own cult, my own freedom fighters and truth speakers, which is the crew of the anti-Mayo warriors who are trying to create a world without slime, without sandwiches that you bite into and you're like, oh, what is this hidden ingredient, slimy rubbish? And we already worship at the altar of dry sandwiches, and we have the best lives, and we're all going to live in the afterlife where there is no slime at all. But the ritual we do, obviously, some people have mayonnaise sometimes. Some people even pretend to like mayonnaise before they see the light and realize that they never liked it all along. But they still need to atone for their sins. So in order to do that, they need to ritualistically eat the driest food they can find. If you're from the UK, like both of us, then you might know what Weetabix is. Eating them dry, that's a good punishment. Maybe if you eat 50 of those, you can undo for your
That's
slimy
certainly
sins.
A punishment, eating dry Weetabix.
I made student Dr. Ben do it once live on stream, which was quite fun. But yeah, there's lots of good dry food you can have. One of my favorite ritualistic dry foods is a crisp sandwich where it's just bread, crisps, bread. And if you have that first thing in the morning, for breakfast, before you have a drink, and then when you're swallowing, the crisps are cutting your throat on the way down, perfection. That's the best kind of sandwich in my mind. So that's the ritual I do for my real religion that you should all sign up to.
That just sounds like self-flagellation. It just...
Well, that's all good religions have some self-flagellation, don't they? So, just shows that we're serious.
Good self-flagellation. That's what we like to hear. Talk Heathen is a product of the atheist community of Austin, a 501c3 non-profit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. You can Talk Heathen and the ACA by going to our merch store. We've got all kinds of swag, t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, and as always, our limited edition t-shirts. That's at tiny.cc/MacheACA for all ACA merchandise. You can click like on the video, subscribe to the channel, enable notifications, and comment on your favorite caller. You can become a channel member by clicking the join button below the video. You'll get custom chat emotes, and you will help perpetuate the mission of the Talk Heathen and the atheist community of Austin. And you can send a super chat with a text question or a comment, which we will read live on air during the show. But until then, we have callers, and we are going to take, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, is this Freyja from Texas, she, her, and she wants to know if Hinduism, proposed that Hinduism may be a proper answer to the God question. Hey, hello, Freyja.
Hello. Hi. Nice to meet both of you, Katie and sir. I haven't met you, but like glad to hear your voice.
Thank you very much.
Hi,
we are
Freyja.
both British, so you probably can't tell us apart.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about Hinduism? That's very interesting. What's your question specifically?
Okay, so like I called back recently because I've had a strange journey on when it concerns belief in things beyond material, like the material world, right? So I started off when I was really young as a young Earth creationist. I was raised up that way. I ended up finding my way out of that and becoming a atheist, and then an anti-theist. Then I became a almost like a strange version of neo-paganism, but also with the added belief. And then I became a Hare Krishna, back to Norse paganism, and now after that, another brief stint in atheism, I've found where I believe to be my place in Hinduism.
Okay, so that's quite a journey I've had.
Yeah, I guess what I'm interested in, like, in order to get out of young Earth creationism, something must have convinced you that it was wrong. Like, what process did you use to get out of that? Like, because I get that, you know, maybe you're trying to think about things in the supernatural or whatever, but you must have been at a point where you're like, you know what, the evidence that I am seeing of the world doesn't match what the young Earth creationists are telling me, so therefore it must be wrong, so I don't believe it anymore. Is that how you got out of young Earth creationism?
It's a combination. First thing, part of the main thing is that from a very young age, through like a very closeted manner, I'm trans.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was very young, that was obviously a huge thing for me. And I was in a very fundamental family. So, of course, everything that comes with that. There's a lot of happiness, but there's also a lot of accepted ignorance in favor of religious text, where a hatred of other beings simply for existing, that was part of it. And the other part of it is that it doesn't comport to science in any manner, that it doesn't even pretend to flirt with, they allow fables to be the driving force of the religion. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters to a fundamentalist, young Earth creationist.
Sure. So I guess there are some. So I guess, you know, I used to believe in God, like the British Christian God or whatever, Church of England, and what got me out of it to start with was a similar thing, was realizing that homophobia is actually garbage, and any God that created gay people and then said that them existing was a sin was immoral. And then that made me consider the fact that it doesn't match up to the world and stuff. But I guess what I realized that there was some claims about the nature of this God that meant that it just couldn't exist, like saying, oh, it's all loving, but also it hates gay people. So that
Exactly.
kind of clash meant that there is some evidence to me that it cannot exist. There are some claims that like gods and religions make where, because you mentioned science, and some things that you could say, oh, there is a God, and I give it the one property of it exists, and we can't prove or disprove that with science. But there are some things we can, like sometimes religions make strong claims. If they were to say, oh, the earth is at the center of the universe, then we could just discover that and find out it's wrong, and then disregard that claim from that religion. So I guess where I'm going with this is, I feel like there are things in young earth creationism which, like you say, don't comport to science and reality. We can just see that the earth is older than 6,000 years old. But there are so many ways that we can verify that. So therefore, young earth creationism is wrong. But then you got into things like paganism and Hinduism later on. Do you feel like that they totally align with science, or do you feel like there is some part of that religion that is like disconnected from science that we can't find out? And I guess my next question would be, why have you, like, it seems like you're just kind of choosing to believe things. Why would you choose to believe something if you don't have evidence for it?
Okay, that's a fair question. I'll do my best to answer succinctly. The first part, could you repeat the first part for me real quick? Because I was listening, but I lost it.
Yeah, no, sorry, I asked you a double question. That was a bit rude. My first part is, so we know some things in young earth creationism are just verifiably false, using a whole different host of science stuff. When you then moved to paganism, did you find out something in paganism was also verifiably false? Or were you that kind of brand of paganism which doesn't really, but as in just believes in like supernatural stuff that we can't verify with or disprove with science?
So I had a very, so to answer, the comporting to science thing is always going to be an important thing to me. What got me into this neo-paganism, this Norse paganism, is that I had an experience, which to me, that I did my best to confirm through outside sources if anything happened. I'm on record as saying that like maybe I was prompted for Norse paganism in a way, but I no longer think that I was actually prompted for that. I had an experience, and this was a step on my way to becoming a Hindu or a follower of Hinduism,
Right.
that it is actually all a part of it.
What was your experience?
Reason, I had to be brought into it in degrees.
What was your experience?
Without meditating or without consumption of any substance of any sort, me and my wife saw a physical entity just sort of come into the room. A physical entity taking a female form that identified itself as the goddess Freyja.
Good name choice then. So I guess there's a few ways to go with this. Richard, sorry if I'm hogging the discussion. I find it interesting. There's a few, there's 100 questions I want to ask on this, and maybe I'm cutting myself off from earlier. But you said that this was like a step on the way to Hinduism. So I'll just accept it. Just say you saw something supernatural, and I'll just accept that as that's something that happened. And then you were like, oh, okay, this is a goddess Freyja, and Freyja's a pagan god, so I should be pagan. And then you're like, oh, okay, actually, that was a step on the way to Hinduism. How do you know that Hinduism isn't a step on the way to, another religion? And that isn't then another step? Like, how do you know when you've got to the right one?
There's a double answer to that, and I'm not contradicting myself when I say this, is that it is a step on the way to something, because Hinduism in itself is not it is a religion. It's an identified religion, but one of the parts of Hinduism is that everyone on every path is on the same path. The second part of that is that when you get to Hinduism, you realize that all of these paths eventually intersect. There is no, like atheism is a classification humans give. Theism is a classification humans give. But at the end of the day, all that matters is our experience with each other and with the universe that we inhabit.
Right. I mean, I guess the way, maybe we're looking at this in different angles, but I guess the way that I approach any kind of sort of belief system or worldview is I just want to know if it's like verifiably true or not. And I mean, I could, if you say to me, oh, you know, we're all headed on the same path and the only thing that really matters is our interactions, then I can see some truth in that. Like I agree enough, but I don't think that would
Can I clarify?
convince me. Yeah, go for it.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
No, it's okay.
Science indeed matters. Hinduism has a history of bowing to science. Whenever science proves something, it doesn't it holds its core tenets. It's almost like a living, breathing cultural religion. That the society itself, like there is the caste system still in India, which I heavily disagree with, and a lot of people have found the horrors and terrors of it. But the core tenets of Hinduism are beyond caste. It's
Okay,
about,
do you mind if I jump in a little bit here?
individual
Sorry, I don't want
experience.
to cut either of you off. Yeah, those southern ladies apparently know how to talk. And so I'm going to jump in and take over from Katie a while. Yes, there's a couple of, one of the things you said early on really interested in me, because you said you'd been into I forget the specific name of it, but essentially the Hare Krishnas, ISKCON. Now that is, they self-classify as a branch of Hinduism. So how do you see the Hinduism you're looking at now different to that?
So, the best example I can give of this, and I really mean no offense to anyone who's listening, if there is a Hare Krishna who is listening, Hare Krishna is sort of like a young earth creationist attachment to Hinduism, that it is a branch that comes off, but their core book, which is the Bhagavad Gita, or the Bhagavad Gita, the pronunciation still escapes me sometimes. They will read and they will nitpick tiny little parts of it. They take, for instance, Krishna, the core feature of Hare Krishna is an avatar of the god Vishnu, which is part of the Trimurti. But they only hold that Krishna is the god that you should follow. It's almost as if they Christianized Hinduism to an extent.
Is that not a true Scotsman fallacy, though? Aren't you calling them out for kind of cherry picking? And
Absolutely not.
Indeed,
Absolutely not a true Scotsman fallacy.
Why?
I didn't say that they're not true Hindus. I say that like this branch of Hinduism, they identify it as it, but it's like, I'm not saying young earth creationists aren't Christians, because they are. It's a branch. You're right in saying it's a branch. You're wrong in saying that like this is wasn't this an end all be all branch of Hinduism? It's not. The way that they're seen as like they are still on the steps of coming into the full faith almost.
There is
You-
no full faith in Hinduism, though, because there are several different schools of Hinduism anyway, with many different sub-schools. I wrote an essay only a couple of months ago about the sacred geography of India and Hinduism. So it's it's not a one size fits all thing by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm just kind of curious as to you said you kind of object. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you said you objected to the caste system, and yet that's put forward in the Hindu texts and in some of the Hindu texts at least. So I was just wondering kind of why you think you've got the right one and they've got the wrong one.
Specifically, I'm going to answer this, just clarify this, because once again, I'm not saying that like they're not Hindu. They are a branch, but what I'm saying is that it fall like if you look into it, the same way you look into young Earth creationism. If you go over here and you say, if it says in the book that they are describing, and it is like, I am an avatar of Vishnu, that I am Vishnu, the preserver, or I am part of this Trimurti, that I am the Alpha and Omega, that sort of stuff. It says that in the book that they all read, and their entire explanation is, I just don't accept that Vishnu is a thing. It's actually Krishna. We call him Krishna now, that every other incarnation, which there are multiple, are all named.
Maybe, Freyja, hang on a sec. Maybe another way of, I'll try and rephrase Richard's question, which is, like, there are different types of Hinduism, obviously, and one of them is Hare Krishna, which you were into before. And you pick some flavor of it and versions of it, and that's cool. And I think by picking one of them, or by having some subset of the belief, or you know, your version of Hinduism, you are rejecting other versions of it. Even if it's just them relabeling stuff, you are saying, oh well, I'm not Hare Krishna now. And it'd be similar to if someone was a young Earth creationist Christian, and then they're like, actually, now I'm not a young Earth creationist Christian because I know young Earth creationism is wrong, and instead I'm going to be a, I don't know, Church of England Christian or whatever.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
And they would reject part of it, and they can say, I know the Earth is whatever, and that's why I'm not this, you know.
Yeah, I absolutely understand. And my response is, I'm not, maybe I worded it incorrectly. I'm not belittling anyone's path, because it's all, at the end of the day, Hinduism. There is no branch that, like, there are interfights that happen between these sects, but Hinduism as a whole is a singular point. That every one of these people, they go and they'll pick a specific faction, but like it's all the same thing.
But they must have disagreements, or they would all be the same.
Humans have disagreements.
They must have religious, like, text disagreements, or ritualistic disagreements.
Most of them accept. Okay, Hinduism accepts the Vedas to start with. That is Hinduism. There are sects that disagree on points in the Vedas. Is the fact that humans disagree on a text
some of them are wrong, though, aren't they?
Of Hinduism?
They can't all be right? Only one of them can be right.
Or none of them, indeed.
Or none of them. And most right.
The point is that they're all right to an extent.
But even if they have mutually exclusive beliefs?
Even if they have mutually exclusive beliefs, there could be a part that I have incorrect in my position, but it's a path. It's not a set, like, I am this branch of Hinduism. This is all Hinduism. Hinduism is the entirety of the culture. It's the entirety of the fabric of people.
Yeah, I'm not trying to say you're not Hindu. What I'm trying to say is, so let's say you have belief A about Hinduism because you read it in one of the books, and then you meet someone and they're like, hey, you've misinterpreted this. Actually, you were wrong. What it is this other thing. Now, you might say, oh, no, obviously that's wrong. Or you might say, oh, you know what? You're right, and I've changed my mind. And in that kind of decision point, you're making a decision about whether the information they've presented you is correct and better than what you previously had or not. And I guess what I'm trying to get to is, what is the decision process you make to do that? Because it's not science. So there must be some parts of Hinduism where someone in another place, in another sect of Hinduism, who is a Hindu, absolutely, totally agree. They say, I've read this book and I think it means this. And you say, I've read the same book and I believe the same things. However, I think it means this. And these two things are mutually exclusive. Only one of you's right. Uh-oh.
Okay, so how to answer that? I think you're approaching this from a very Western perspective, like a Western idea. In this, Hinduism is not a faith you go out and you preach it. Like, you don't go out and go on missions. There is no, like, Great Commission. It's when you would have disagreements with the thing, you're like, oh, this is what I find to be true. And the other person would say, well, this is what I find to be true. And then you examine your own beliefs. And if you find that to comport to what you're saying, or if you find out that you have a flaw in your understanding, then you correct it or not. Regardless,
Yeah,
you
that,
don't have an
that's the bit
effect
I
on
want to
the
get
other
to.
practitioners of the faith. Everyone is
How
a
do you find out?
singular monument.
How do you find out whether it's correct or not when you reassess your beliefs?
You look at it from an objective standpoint. You distance yourself from it, or you question it. You meditate on it. There is an entire thing, but like one of the points of it is that you're always seeking. You're never there as someone who is just, I have accepted this religion. These are the core tenets. Everyone else back off. I've found the real thing. That's not how it works. Hinduism is an evolving religion. It evolves through each and every person and each and every conversation. Every single person has a different understanding of Hinduism, and their level of enlightenment varies.
So why would you believe it's true then? And I want to try and kind of get back to your actual question, which call screener wrote down, which was that Hinduism may be a proper answer to the God question. I want to try and get to that specific point. How is it a proper answer to the God question? But lots of things that you're saying are really interesting me. You're kind of, if I'm understanding you right, you're kind of saying that, you know, all paths lead to the top of the same mountain and it doesn't really matter which path you're trying to take. And I'd kind of love to get into that a little bit more with you at some point, but I really want to dig down on how you think it's a proper answer to the God question. What methodology are you using to kind of give it this substance, this accuracy as being an answer to the God question?
Okay, so from the number one perspective, can I ask a few questions to help this answer along real quick?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, one, do we believe that if there was a God, do we believe that they would necessarily look human?
Not necessarily, no. Not to my mind. I don't know about Katie.
No, I'm
It's not an
unconvinced.
Earth-centric universe, right?
Well, I mean, some of the gods allegedly claim to be just like humans, so I don't know how I could tell which ones of them were true or false. Like, if someone's like says, "My God said that it looks like a human," and then someone else says, "Mine doesn't," then to me they're equally true because I haven't seen it or heard from it.
Right. Number two, the time scale in which a God would have to work on would have to be like comporting to reality, correct? Like if we were to accept that there was a God of a particular religion, it would have to follow at least our time scale as far as we can describe it through our mathematical equations and our ways of identifying its existence.
I'm not entirely sure I understand that question. I mean, if it depends what the attributes of the God are. If God is all or possibly even maximally powerful, it could potentially do anything in an instant. It wouldn't necessarily have to follow time scales that we kind of follow ourselves.
Yeah, maybe this God can communicate information faster than the speed of light. I don't know.
Yes, but like I'm saying that as we can understand it, I'm saying from an evidentiary standpoint, we have a geologic column. We know how to, within reason, identify the date of things. Using the universe around us that we are available to see, we can calculate these things and get a basic understanding. It might still heavily be incorrect, but we can get an approximate to these answers that we're seeking, right?
Well, a god could have created the whole universe yesterday and created me with the memories of the last 30 years. I mean, that is possible.
Right, but is that likely?
I don't know if it's more likely than a god creating in the universe. I don't know which one's more likely.
What are the attributes of the particular god you're proposing? I think that's a fairer question rather than me and Katie kind of telling you what attributes God has. If you tell us what attributes you think your God has.
I don't think it's bound by time. I think theoretically a god could have no rules at all. Like, gods can do what they want, can't they?
Okay, so the reason I ask that is because in Hinduism's explanation for creation and how as gods because they do believe that the universe was created. Obviously, that's part of the culture, and maybe within time that will fall away as well.
Why?
But as it stands, well, because there's this concept going around of like what is it? It's the destruction of the heavens is what they're calling that with the application of science and think that certain attributes are falling away from Hinduism. And so we no longer focus on those, but we focus on the improvement of the other tenets.
Just a quick question. I'm sorry for interrupting. I just need to ask this just to clarify. Do you consider Buddhism a school of Hinduism?
Absolutely.
Right, because in Buddhist
standpoint and perspective.
In Buddhist cosmology, there is no beginning to the universe. It is beginningless. There is absolutely no beginning.
Yeah.
So when you say they believe, I'm trying to kind of narrow down who they are, because you've said ISKCON, as far as you're concerned, are a legitimate school of Hinduism. Buddhists are a school of Hinduism, and you're saying they believe this, and yet there's already one example there that doesn't follow this belief you've just given that they believe.
Okay, so the reason I say that is not I'm not saying that take away the label of Buddhism from them. But like these, if you look at the core tenets and everything, it is still to an extent Hinduism. Like they believe that the universe comes out and it's continual, that it's infinite, universal. If you look at Hinduism, which I was trying to get to with the answer of the attributes of the god, which is Vishnu, the preserver, or like the Trimurti in general, which is Brahman, the creator, Vishnu, the preserver, and Shiva, the destroyer. They're all attributes of this one almost Lovecraftian being that is without human form, that births the universe continuously. It breathes it in and breathes it out.
But that's not a part of Buddhism. And you've just said that Buddhism is...
The universe either has to start or it doesn't.
They believe... Like, but the point is that they believe the universe comes out, that like it is a continuous thing. I'm not saying that like Buddhists are not...
It's not a cyclic thing like
Hindu.
you're
What
talking about in the rest of Hinduism.
It's all the
The
same
universe
thing.
either had a start or it didn't. And if you believe it did, then the people who believe it didn't are wrong in your eyes. And only one of you is right.
No.
And the only way to find out which one of you is right is by doing some science, or we can't know at all. That's the argument I'm making.
No, absolutely not. Because the point behind Buddhism and the point behind Hinduism is the philosophy, not exactly.
But then they shouldn't make claims about the start of the universe. If I say here's my philosophy, here's my philosophy, and also, the universe was created by a frog, you'd be like, well, why should I listen to you when you're saying this nonsense about a frog? You should stick to philosophy.
Absolutely not. My place would be like, why do you think this? My answer would be like,
I know. I would say I have no evidence at all. But you've got to believe it anyway.
That's not how Hinduism works.
But you keep saying that's not how Hinduism works. But you're saying they believe this. No. This is how Hinduism works. But by the same token, you're also including a lot of different philosophies within that. But at the same time, just choosing the particular one that you seem to agree with.
Well, okay, then let me answer this just in the most clear way I can. And I honestly, I'm not pulling your leg, and I can understand how this seems from like an outside perspective, and I'm trying to put it into proper words and phrases. These other in Hinduism, everything is a path. Christianity is a path, and it's a valid path. There are things incorrect about it that we believe in Hinduism, but maybe they're right on certain things. From the perspective of a Hindu, I'm not deriding anyone's set of beliefs. What I'm saying is that from Hinduism, everything is a path. Islam, Christianity, Taoism, all these philosophies is all the same thing. It all goes to the same place. It all goes to that same transcendental answer.
But they're all mutually exclusive.
Yeah, that I think. Listen, I'm really interested. I'm genuinely interested in this kind of line of questioning. But I think that deserves its own call. So I think what we'll do is we're going to let you go for today, but I implore you to call back where we can discuss that particular line of questioning further about, all these different traditions leading to the same kind of goal, just for want of a better phrase. But, call back I'm not sure when I'm on again, in a couple of weeks, I think it is. If you call back on next time I'm on, so we can continue having this conversation, because I really want to kind of drill down that particular path with you. But I really thank you for your call. It's been an interesting conversation, and it's something I come from kind of a religious studies background, and I'm really interested in all these kinds of ideas. So, this is where I really want to go, and I want to really dig down with that and drill down into that. Katie, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like one of the first things that you said was you're looking at this from a very Western perspective, and I totally put my hands up to that. I don't know enough, and I'd like to do some research and then talk to you more about this. So it'd be great. Yeah.
Absolutely. I want to go ahead and apologize that if I spoke unclearly, because I can understand that a lot of this that comes out of nowhere, if all you're familiar with is like a Christian fundamentalism or Islam, because like Hinduism is a...
Oh,
have we lost Freyja?
might have lost her.
Right.
Okay.
So, Katie, sorry, Katie. What are your thoughts on that?
On which, sorry?
On the kind of this idea that we're all religions are leading to the same kind of goal.
I mean, to me, it feels like a cop-out. It feels like when, and no offense to Freya or anyone who believes this, I guess, but like when I feel like people want to justify their religion, because I mean, one of the big problems with religion is whatever religion you believe, most humans on Earth who have ever lived disagree with you. Like even if you're a Christian, the majority, well, even if you pretend the majority of Christians agree with you, which they don't, most humans aren't Christian today, and most humans weren't Christian in history. So I feel like people want an excuse to be like, oh no, well, it's all just one big thing. Everyone's a believer. The only people who are wrong are atheists. But it's just cannot be true, because there are things like the universe had a beginning and the universe didn't have a beginning. And, loads of, right down to small things to major stuff, like the concept of sin and Jesus dying for your sin is such a core part of Christianity. And for other religions, there's no concept of that at all. And the idea of that might be offensive, and it's completely garbage. And you just can't say these are the same paths to some kind of end. It's like, oh, we'll all end up in heaven anyway. Because if one religion says, I know my God exists, I have met my God because they came into my house and they said hello, and they said, if you don't do this, if you don't always wear magic underwear, you are going to hell. That is not it cannot be the same path as you always go to heaven regardless, because they're just, I'm not on board with it at all.
No, it's something I'd like to drill down with a little bit further with Freyja if they call back. If you shop on Amazon, then you can support the ACA at no cost to you. Simply visit tiny.cc/Amazon Smile ACA, and do it soon, because this program ends tomorrow on February the 20th. There's still time to get in and do that. We want to give a huge, huge thank you to everyone who has selected the Atheist Community of Austin as their designated charity. And with your help, we have raised over $10,000. So there is still time to jump on and do that. If you're making purchases from Amazon, Amazon will give us a little bit of that a contribution, and it will cost you nothing. With Amazon Smile ending, we could use extra support. You can support us on Patreon at tiny.cc/PatreonTH, and we now have a channel that houses all of the ACA shows in audio podcast form. Visit tiny.cc AEN podcasts. You can become part of the Talk Heathen community in our fan-run Facebook page at tiny.cc FBTHG. And also, in case you didn't know, Talk Heathen now has a TikTok account, and we will be going live there before the shows on a Sunday. I was live there before the show today. I was live there before the show last week. It's something we really want to see you on. Go and subscribe there. Go to Talk Heathen and that's the Talk Heathen TikTok. And there's also an ACA TikTok. We really, really want to get those subscribers up. Kate, we've got a few more calls. Which one do you fancy?
I kind of always like Noah's Ark questions. Do you want to do that one?
What, the Noah's Flood one?
Yeah.
Yeah, go on. We'll take Darius. Darius, you are live with Richard Gilliver and Katy Montgomerie. You want to talk about Noah's Flood?
Yeah, how you guys doing? So you're Richard, eh? How you doing, man?
I am Richard. Darius is someone who's visited. We've just been advertised in the Facebook fan groups. Darius is someone who was just visited the ACA fan-run Atheist versus Theist debate groups. And, you know, he's been encouraged to call in, and he's calling in. I'm very, very, very excited to talk to him about this. So do you want to lay down, Darius, kind of what your basic premise is?
Well, as you know, we've went back and forth in the group. The bottom line is what I'm here to show is this. The flood story, we all know it. We know it backwards and forward. Most of us do. Here's the thing that I'm here to say about it. Off top, we need to establish that the men that wrote the story, whether it be Noah or another writer, whoever wrote that story, according to the Bible, they thought they lived on a flat plane of earth. Ain't that the way? Can we all agree on that first? They thought that it was a flat earth and it was surrounded
I don't
by
know
water.
about that. I'm not convinced.
That's what
where does it say that in the Bible?
It says that the earth was flat. That's why we got flat earthers today that still believe that. It's ridiculous, but at the time
humans,
there
were some humans at least that worked out the world was round before Jesus's times. Actually, this is pre, isn't it?
Sorry.
This is pre that.
I'm only discussing Noah and the story writers of that story.
Right. Okay.
And what I'm saying is,
potentially,
according to them, that was the whole world. You see what I'm saying?
But they had direct communication with God,
this,
so God should have told him, really.
Right. Of course I believe that, being a God believer, but I'm not even pushing that. I'm just pushing for facts at this moment of the story. Could the story happen? Could an entire earth be destroyed without killing everything in the entire world? Could it happen?
No.
Yes. According to that story, they thought they lived on a flat plane of earth surrounded by water.
Well, before we get into that, I think it's important, and I think you agree with this as well, Darius. And so, I think it's very, very important to just put out there that the Earth is not flat. We can both agree on that. We live on a spherical globe. We all agree on that. The Earth is categorically not flat. So, let's just get that out of the way first. And you're talking about the beliefs of people in the past. That's correct, isn't it?
But they spoke to God, didn't they? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Basically, validating the story. Could it have happened the way they saw it and the way they wrote about it? That's the thing. It's a big misunderstanding of Christians and anyone else, scholars. You know me, I don't really respect any scholar that did not see this clearly, that they were writing in what they knew, and they wasn't aware of the rest of the world. So these scholars missed this.
You go ahead, Richard.
Can I just ask you, what kind of, are you suggesting that the people who wrote this story they thought that the entire world that they were aware of was flooded, but it wasn't the entire world as we know it today? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Right. So I just wanted to clarify that, because I'm very interested in this, because as we briefly touched on talking in the Facebook group, at the time, the people who wrote this story, they had knowledge of Europe, most of Europe, certainly all of the Middle East, a good portion of North Africa, and possibly even India. It was only 100 years or so after that we get the earliest kind of reports of India. So it's very possible that they even had a knowledge of the extent of the earth right up until India, or if not the borders of India. So I'm just kind of curious as to what kind of evidence you think there is that there was a flood on that scale, even if not global, but simply on the scale that these people would have understood of as the whole world.
Well, as we know, for one, no one knows exactly when the Noah story supposedly happened. I'm gonna say supposedly, just to be fair here. No one really knows how long ago that was. We got an idea. Now, there's several ways that this could happen. I mean, when you look at it from another perspective of, okay, we're not looking at the world now. We're looking at how big was this plane of Earth? Is that what I think is what you're asking or projecting here to what you think or what we think? How big of Earth are we talking about? That was flooded.
Yeah.
Now,
because it sounds like this might not solve any problems, it might create more problems.
Well, maybe so, but I'm just saying now. Well, now we don't know if that, Richard. I appreciate you saying it, but we don't know if that is exactly so. Now we all know that there are not, I don't say cities, because I don't want to get into that, but there is land that once was not covered by sea that is now covered by sea.
Yeah,
is that true? Can we agree on that?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah,
I don't know. All right. I'm just making a point. Now, I don't know where the flood took place. Nobody really does. They're a liar if they say, I know exactly where it happened. They're lying to you. The bottom line is, all I'm here to do is knock down this solid wall of impossible to say, no, this possibly could have happened this way. And I'm not even bending words. I'm literally reading it as it was written in the Bible.
Well, talking of how it was written in the Bible, because I guess that's where we get the knowledge from. That's where you get the knowledge from. That's where I get the knowledge from, that this may or may not have happened. In the Bible, God does say that he's going to destroy all the creatures on heaven, below the heavens. And a direct quote from God here. He's saying, I'm going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I'm surely going to destroy both them and the earth. So you've got to make this boat, blah, 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 blah. And then he says, what was this other thing I was just looking at? And I will wipe from the face of the earth every living creature I have made. So he's not going to achieve that just by flooding the Middle East. I mean, there's thousands of freshwater fish in North America, for example, and in order to wipe them out, he'd have to flood America. So this is the part I'm reading here is Genesis 6-9. If you're interested, but I feel like the only information we have about the flood does kind of claim that it's the whole earth. So I'm not really sure if your argument, and if you're saying the Bible's wrong, then I can just say, well, I agree.
Well, that's a good one. No, absolutely. What I'm saying is, that's funny. No, for one, I use the King James Bible. That's a whole 2-hour discussion to why.
Okay, I'm a new international. I'll switch to King James.
Okay, King James. Now, what I'm going to tell you is, it says earth. You can go through all King James. All these writers, all they knew about was earth and the heavens. Now, this ain't even bending words either. We all know that these primitive men refer to the sky as the heavens. Okay, so if I went outside right now, stepped outside and looked up, that would be my heavens. And that was their heavens. Still, again, they're on a plane of earth that was surrounded by water. To them, this was everything.
In New King James, though, it does say, I am bringing floodwaters on the earth to destroy from under heaven all flesh, which is the breath of life. Everything that is on the earth shall die. So everything. Right? So God, that's a God quote.
Now, watch this. Here's where the scholars, I believe, well, I know they got it wrong. I'm gonna say I know. Now that we're not in the group, I can so-called preach. That's what you call it. That's for I get to preach. I know for a fact that these writers were talking about the earth that they were on. When they spoke with God, God did, and also in this, but I'm going to put this out here, God didn't even want these men to become smart. I hate to say it, but he actually didn't want that to happen. He went against it. But to get back to the flood story, it said earth, 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 earth. And everybody asked me for a miracle. I'm going to provide you one today. Huh?
It does say all. So the point where I'm going with this is if like, and I guess another thing is just imagine God's like, I know when I say earth, so I'm God and I'm going to talk to Richard, who's like the king of the humans at the moment. I'm like, I know what this guy thinks. He thinks the world is flat. He thinks the world only extends to the horizon. He thinks there are only like 10,000 people on Earth because that's as far as he's been. Okay, so I'm just going to say Earth. And I think everyone in this little range is awful and I'm going to destroy all of them. I'm going to destroy all the men, all the women, all the children, all the non-binary people, all of the like fish and dogs and everything, but only in the Middle East. Like what is my reason as a god to destroy all of the freshwater fish that live in the Middle East, but none of the animals in the rest of the world? Like I get that your reason for presenting this smaller scale flood is it's arguably more credible than a global flood. But I just feel like it's only more credible in the fact that you need less water, not in the fact that it makes more sense or that it says it in the Bible or like what's the point?
Well,
where did it end? Did someone just had like flood up to their ankles? Like there must have been a point the last person to die at the edge of the flood. Were they not that wicked? What happens if you lived at the end of the street that went underwater and the other end of the street didn't? Like were you? I don't know, like there must have been an edge to this destruction and God was like, you're all right. People living on North Street, you're going to live through this. People living on South Street, you are fucked.
Are you mocking me? Are you mocking me right now, Richard? Look, man, the bottom line is this. It said earth, 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 ground, whole earth, earth, ground, whole earth, earth. It never said the whole world. And what I'm trying, here's one
everything
evidence.
on Earth.
But the word for earth is, which we've discussed before, but just for the benefit of the listeners, the word for earth is eretz, which can specifically mean the whole world. And in context, as Katie said, in context of the actual story, it does seem to refer, if we're going on what God actually said, to the entire world. There's no indication that it only meant this localized area. It seems to me that you're only getting this interpretation just as because you kind of you think that these people only believed in this certain little area extending and being their whole world. I think that's quite insulting to the people who lived at that time.
Well, they can come and talk to me about it. The bottom line is this, look, God didn't write the Bible, man. He inspired it. A man wrote that Bible. A lot of Christians don't want to hear that. Hey, but it's true. I'm sorry. God didn't write the Bible. Man wrote the Bible inspired by God's word. And the bottom line is the man that wrote this Bible did the best they could to explain what they were seeing and experiencing. Of course, he's going to say God said. Yeah, God said he was going to flood the whole earth. And whatever wording they were using, it still wouldn't matter. At that time, they thought the entire world was a flat plane of earth, regardless of how big, with mountains, high hills, you can name anything, all the animals. And by the way, the fish, it said only air-breathing animals. So fish wasn't included in this. I'm sorry?
Flesh, birds, cattle, and beasts.
Yeah,
it would have killed the freshwater fish, wouldn't it?
No, it said air-breathing animals only.
Do you think there's evidence for this flood, Darius, in this localized area?
I do, actually. I really do. Obviously, I can't just fly out there and hire a ship to go down and dig to see it. But I got my own personal beliefs of where I think this took place, yes.
You think there's evidence out there and you just haven't seen it? You don't think you have evidence. You think that there is evidence. We haven't got it yet.
Yes, and then I think there is some honesty, and that's another story. But with what evidence is found, there are cities that are buried under the sea. Do you agree with that, or?
There are, but there are cities that are buried
that?
under the sea on the entire planet. So it's hard just to pluck one particular flood story out and say that's responsible for all of the flooded cities.
No, I'm only defending the story that's in the Bible. That one particular story says that an entire earth was destroyed. The whole space. Huh? Hello?
Which specific area do you think was flooded? Do you think the Bible story is referring to?
I ain't gonna sit here and lie and say I know which city or place. I just know that one of these cities that's buried under sea, I really believe that's one of the locations where this possibly took place. I believe it actually is one of these.
We might be able to do some maths on this because it mentions mountains. So we've got to find somewhere that has at least one mountain or two mountains, because then it's mountains plural. And it had enough water to go over the top of the mountains. So then we might end up with miles high of water. And then even if we had let it like flatten off in the way that water does, like how high is that going to need to go? And is there any land left?
Oh wow! There's mountains. There are huge mountains buried underwater right now, under the sea.
Yeah,
I mean,
right now.
You got to be aware of this. They're huge mountains.
I am, but if we got some of the mountains above the land right now and we put them underwater, the water level would have to be a lot higher, like hundreds of meters higher. And if the water level in the Middle East was say 300 meters higher, I mean, you can't just have water stacked up in a pile, because that isn't how it works, is it? It likes to flatten out. So then the water level would have to raise in most places, right? Well, like, is it even physically possible to have a 300-meter water level in one place and not in another?
Well, Court, if we can, I can take you to I could take you to a place in the sea right now that is covered. There's mountains covered. There's land plains that's covered right now.
Yeah.
So,
but the water is relatively flat. And like you couldn't just raise up the water level somewhere 300 meters higher and that not have an effect elsewhere, right? Like you're thinking about just the physics of it.
We're talking past tense. It already had effect hundreds of thousands of years ago. It already done it. You know, it already raised up and.
Are you suggesting rather than adding more water to what we have today and that went away somewhere, you're saying that there used to be less water and there were cities on land that now still are underwater?
Yes, and also it wasn't just one thing that caused that. Even in the Bible, it speaks of the land plains that broke and water was coming up even from the ground. It says it in the story. In Genesis, when it talks about the flood story, the water was coming from the ground as well. So it was coming from above and out of the ground.
That kind of, you know, that answers some of the questions, because if we can go and find some city underwater, we could say, wow, maybe 6,000 whatever years ago, this was actually on land and God's brought in all this water and it's still flooded and the people who were killed in that are still dead. But the issue is, I feel like when they're talking about the earth, like these people were aware of cities we know still exist, like Jerusalem, for example. So, I mean, what happened to them?
Well, I'm just saying, I'm in the flood story, and at this particular time, these people did not know about a lot of stuff. Matter of fact, they. Hello.
Hello.
Darius, I think
Yeah.
I think what would be beneficial is, I've really enjoyed. I'm really glad you've called.
Me
It
too.
really makes me excited when people call
Love
from
it.
the groups, from the Facebook fan groups. I think what would be probably beneficial to continue this conversation in a productive way is if you kind of go away and have a look at where the people lived who wrote this story, and then kind of, because you said you believe that there's evidence but you're not quite sure where that evidence is, have a look where they wrote the story and have a look if there's evidence for a flood in that area which covered that area. And once you've done that, I think give us a call back and kind of go into the details more specifically about where you think this flood occurred, because at the minute we're kind of talking about a general idea, which is very interesting, but there's not really any meat and potatoes there to kind of get into and discuss in any kind of depth. So, if you can go away and kind of find out where the people lived who wrote the story, and find out if there's any flood evidence from that particular area, and then give us a call back. I really, really do appreciate you calling, Darius. I'm going to give you a quick minute just to kind of give us your final word before we let you go.
Okay. Yeah, and I want to say, Rich, I find you to be quite pleasant in person on the phone. It seems the wording in the group is bad. And I must say I suffer from dyslexia. So just why I got you in person. Now you know if my wording is ever weird, I do suffer from that. So that is it causes me problems. And I'm going to say with this is, as a regular, you got the Christian faith and all these faiths, all these man-made religions and all this stuff. None of that is relevant to anything. If we did away with the religion, the man-made religion, atheists and God believers wouldn't have to fight like we do. I have no problem with you guys.
Absolutely.
I mean,
I don't think we're fighting, Darius, but I do appreciate your call. I am going to have to let you go. Thank you very, very much for calling. It's
See you, Darius.
that was an interesting one. That I've spoke to Darius for probably a few weeks now in the Facebook groups, and it's always interesting when you get someone like that. And he's not the hardest person to understand that we get in the Facebook groups by any stretch of the imagination. I'm really, really glad he's calling, and I really encourage other people who are members of the groups to call in, because that's what we want. We want that interaction with them. Katie, shall we do a couple of super chats before we move on?
Yeah, very excited to read out super chats. I don't think we've done this in Talk Heathen before. So, yeah, we have one super chat here, which I am very disapproving of, which is from Greg Markowski, $4.99, very kind, but says, thanks for the show. I can tolerate mayo, but it's not my favorite. That is not good enough. That is mayo apologia. That's like, oh yeah, genocide's not that bad. I guess I can tolerate it. No, none of this. Phase mayo out your life, eating some dry Weetabix and atone for your sins.
Yeah, it seems like all the super chats are kind of ganging up against you on the old mayo thing, because we've got
mayo propaganda. It's Big Mayo coming in, ruining our show.
We have a second super chat from James Cole. That's for $5, and he says, making a grilled cheese sandwich for lunch. A trick I learned 20 plus years ago was to use mayo on the bread for the grilling instead of butter. That's something I might have to try. I'm not sure Katie's quite with me on that. I don't think she'll be coming around for that particular barbecue. But it's something I might have a go at. Thank you for those super chats. Anyone else, if you want your messages read on air, whether they may be mayo related or otherwise, feel free to give us a super chats and we will read them all on there. Also, make sure to check out the newest episode of the flagship show of the ACA, the non-profits, which will air live at 3 p.m. Central Time today at tiny.cc/YTNP. And if you're happy to see me on this show, you will see me on that show as well. I will be joining our anchor, Cynthia McDonald, on there, and we've got a couple of great guests on there as well. I implore you to go and watch the non-profits. It's an absolutely fantastic show. The ACA wants you to know what is going on in our community. And for that, we've got an updated website. Head to www.atheist-community.org, where you can learn about the organization itself, its policies, and how you can get involved. And we want to hear from you. We want to know what you liked and what you thought was effective, and more importantly, what you thought we could do better. And to do that, you can email us at tvist@atheist-community.org and let us know. Now, as you all know, the ACA hosts several shows other than Talk Heathen, including the non-profit, Secular Sexuality, Truth Wanted, and the Atheist Experience. And if you didn't catch all of the shows last week, here's a taste of the things you probably want to go back and watch.
The Fet Lives, where you found me, just doing my thing, in the Pet Palace.
I like the idea that the audience thinks that I just like sort of troll Fet Life, just trying to find somebody to come and talk to me about something sexy and funny and weird.
He knows things through a feeling, and you know through things from a feeling. And it seems like with that very same method, we can arrive at almost polar opposite beliefs. Do you think that way of knowing your belief is a reliable way to know that belief?
If you read, there are passages and letters written by Queen Victoria herself where she, let's just say, gleefully comments upon the manhood of her husband Albert. That's why there's a ring named after him. It's how he used to control the beast.
Are you inside my brain?
I can tell you what Satan your mind into believing.
Hold on. I find it kind of offensive to use inflammatory language like that to describe somebody that does not believe in your God.
Whether it's in the Bible or not, for treating a human being as a means and not an end in themselves. And just because some Bronze Age semi-savages may have justified it, I just don't think that counts.
Hello and welcome back. And if you can arrange to be in the Austin area from February 26, clearly, like me and Katie are, consider joining us in the studio audience at the ACA Free Thought Library for live broadcasts of Talk Heathen and the Atheist Experience. Doors open at noon on Sunday. Parking is where you can find a legal spot after the lot is full. If you can't make it there this month, we will continue to broadcast live from the library the last week of each month. So keep watching this show and our website, atheist-community.org, and I can't speak, for news and information as we expand our in-studio offerings in the near future. And speaking of being in the local Austin area, if you do live in Austin or are Austin adjacent, we are in great need of additional crew members for our shows. If you are interested in assisting with video, audio, or call screening, and you can attend our live shows, please email us at tv@atheist-community.org, and the production team will be in touch. Right, I think we're going to jump into another call. I think we'll take Marlon from the Philippines. Marlon, are you there? You want to talk about your personal experience of seeing Jesus in the sky.
With diamonds.
Yes, sir. How are you? How are you, Richard? Katie? Hello.
Very good, thank you. How are you, Marlon?
Well, I'm good. Well, basically, I was in California long ago. Coming back from a pilgrimage, I was in pilgrimage in California, getting my notebook for a daily reflection. It was the night, coming back from church, and then I saw this dark supernatural figure coming down from the sky. Looks like a man with long hair, bearded face, and then wearing white robes. And then I caught it on video. Actually.
That's
I would
very,
love to
very
see that
interesting that
video.
you caught it on video. It's I mean, it's one thing we often hear people making claims that they saw kind of figures of Jesus or other supernatural beings, and but not very often do we hear people who say they've got video evidence of it.
Could you put it on YouTube? Or an alternate platform?
I will continue for a moment. Actually, I go home that night, and then when I go to sleep, I had a dream. Actually, I had a dream of meeting Jesus in a foggy place. I had an out-of-body experience, and then it was a realistic dream where I went outside and Jesus met me. He said, "Come here, my son. Come here, and I have a gift for you." He gave me this envelope
Marlon,
money.
sorry. I'm just going to interrupt a minute. I'm just going to kind of skip past the dream bit because if I went outside at night and saw a bearded man with long hair descending from the heavens, I think I'd probably have a dream about it as well afterwards, because that's quite a profound experience. It's not something that I think I'd just kind of dismiss and kind of go to bed and dream about My Little Pony and other toys that are available in plastic horse form. And I think so. Let's stick with the encounter itself rather than the dreams that occurred after the encounter. Now, you said you had video evidence, and as Katie said, have you published this evidence?
It was the same guy. It was the same guy. I remember it clearly in my head. It was the same guy. People could say maybe I was sleepwalking, but then I got what I wanted. The financial assistance, I got what I wanted. And I wake up outside my home that morning. So then it was sleepwalking. People would say it was sleepwalking. But I got back what I wanted. I got what I prayed for, man.
Do you still have the video?
Yes. It's even on
Have you
Inside
uploaded it?
Edition.
Can you put it on the internet?
Edition. Inside Edition, Jesus Christ in the Sky. Search it. It's on the top.
Oh, you can search it. Sorry, what do I need to search?
Jesus Christ in the Sky. Search it on YouTube.
Jesus
Inside
Christ
Edition.
in the sky.
Well, Katie's searching for that.
Strange figure in sky. Oh, this is exciting.
You got it. Yes, I saw that. Yes.
Did you say this occurred in California? Was I correct in hearing that right?
Yes. You can play the video. I saw that myself, man. That's why I'm a believer, man. I'm a believer.
You seem very excited about it, Marlon.
I'm excited about it.
It was a miracle. Man, that's why
I mean, this is a very low quality video of a man in the sky for sure. I mean, it could be a balloon.
Yes, that's what man.
I mean,
good things have been happening in my life, man. Good things have been happening in my life, Katie.
So Katie's saying this isn't the clearest video in the world, is she? And it could be a balloon. There've been several balloons over America recently, from what I've been led to believe. It wasn't the Chinese balloon with Jesus painted on the side, was it?
What?
Man, this video has 11.5 million.
What is the question?
Famous.
What year was this, Marlon?
3 years ago.
It was three years ago. 3 years ago.
So
2019.
I'm assuming it's quite a decent video rendering then.
It's
Yes.
it's worth watching.
And then there's another one. You got it, man.
Yeah, I got it. So I guess. I mean, it is exciting. It's exciting seeing that. So, I guess, I mean, there's a lot of questions that I could go from here. I guess my question would be, if I saw something, and I thought, oh wow, this person flying in the sky, that could be before I'm told what it is, that could be a lot of things. It could be Jesus, it could be Muhammad, it could be an alien, it could be a robot, it could be anything. But then you had a dream which you feel is what confirmed to you it was Jesus. But
yes,
I guess
what I saw.
what Richard was saying earlier was that he would have had a dream about that event, because it's weird. Like, you don't see something that looks like a man flying straight. Like, I mean, it kind of looks like a source engine glitch, but you don't see that kind of thing every day. So you would dream about it. But how do you know the difference between your mind just being like, oh, that must have been Jesus, and actually Jesus talking to you in a dream? How do you know the difference? Because there are other people who feel like Muhammad has spoken to them in the dream, and other people who feel like they've spoken to like Buddha in a dream. So how do you know that yours was definitely real and theirs were fake?
Well, I have been taught in the, actually, first of all, Islam is connected to Christianity. Islam is connected to Christianity.
They are connected, for sure.
Is Islam.
But you're not. You're not Muslim, are you?
Angels sometimes disguise themselves as other good people. Angels disguise themselves.
Who disguises themselves?
Other people. Angels disguise. Yes, disguise.
I didn't catch the first word. But okay. So there are some religions that aren't. There are some religions that aren't related to Christianity. Like, obviously, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam are related. But there are other religions that aren't related. We were just talking to someone who's a Hindu, and like, they have some gods, and there are some people from every religion that's ever existed who believe they have met their God in a dream. How do you, like, they can't all be right. You're right and they're wrong. Presumably that's what you believe. But how do you know that you're right and they're wrong? How do you know? Like, if I say I just had a dream and I met, like, Buddha in a dream, and he told me that Christianity was false, how do I know if I'm right or if you're right?
You mean if he said Christianity was false?
Yeah, if I had a dream and I met Buddha in it, and he said,
those are demons. Those are demons. The demons, evil spirits.
Maybe Buddha says, but maybe I believe that Jesus is a demon and Buddha's the one true. How would we know? Like, maybe you met a demon, like maybe a demon floated through the air, because that seems pretty demonic to me. And then the demon entered your dream and said, Christianity is real, to try and trick you. How do you know whether that's the case or not?
Because my prayer was answered. I got what I want. I got what
you got what you wanted. Well, that's kind of telling.
I got the money. I got the money. The financial, people could say,
getting what you wanted seems neither here nor there to the actual to the seeing Jesus in the sky thing. That just seems like that's confirmation bias. But I've just watched the video while Katie was talking to you. I'm quite interested in how you identified that as Jesus, because I couldn't even identify it as a person. It had a vaguely person-ish shape, but it was completely still. There was no movement whatsoever. Like,
I thought it looked like you, Richard.
It did a little bit. It did a little bit. Especially when it started speaking with the northern accent, that kind of gave it away for me that it was in fact Richard floating from the sky. But in all seriousness, Marlon, how did you recognize that as Jesus? Because it certainly didn't. I mean, you described the thing you saw as having long hair and a long beard, but that didn't. That's not what came across on the video that I've just watched.
In my day-to-day life.
So you're already a Jesus believer, and this is kind of what I'm getting, and correct me if I'm wrong. You already believe in Jesus, you're already a Christian, and you saw this thing occur, and you had the foresight to get your video camera out, or your phone, whatever you filmed it on, which is, very good. I wish more people would do that when making these claims. but you kind of you've. It seems to me that you've already got this belief, and because you've got this belief that Jesus is a supernatural being, that I assume that only Jesus in your kind of worldview can do this, then you automatically jumped to it being Jesus. How did you kind of, what methodology did you use to find out whether it was Jesus or not? Or was it just a case of immediately accepting it as Jesus?
Because I already saw his face before, Richard.
Where did you see
He
him?
is close to me. He is my friend. He actually saved my life from a motorcycle accident back in middle school. And that was me in the Philippines. I thought I was going to die. I thought I was going to die.
So Jesus is your friend and he saved your life?
Yes, from being hit by a motorcycle back in middle school.
I mean, that's very interesting. I think as that's kind of going off the Jesus video claim, I think that's something we might have to talk about on another occasion, how Jesus saved your life. And that again is, I mean, for someone to already believe in Christianity, already be a Christian, and have the good fortune of seeing Jesus descending from the skies, and have the good fortune of Jesus saving the life, it seems like you're a very blessed person, Marlon. So, but I'd like to invite you to call back on another occasion and talk to us about the Jesus saving your life incident.
Yeah,
we have got quite a few calls and we are running out of time, so I'm going to have to let you go at this point in time. Thank you very much for your call. We really do appreciate it. Katie, what do you think of specifically the Jesus descending from the sky video that we've just watched?
I think everyone should go watch it because it's a good video.
Yep.
I guess if I always try and put myself into like the position of the most good faith interpretation of it. If I saw someone and I was like, that is a fucking human, like a real living person, looks like my stereotype of what Jesus looks like, and they are just like straight arms down flying through the air. If I saw that, what would I actually think? It'd be pretty wacky. I guess my first thought just wouldn't be that is Jesus. I would be like, wow, what kind of like weird technology is going on here? Or I'd probably be like, am I meeting aliens? This is probably the best day of my life. But like the thing that I would take me to the next line, if I then had a dream about it where Jesus spoke to me, that wouldn't convince me more personally. I would be mind blown by the flying man thing, but not by the dream thing, because I've had dreams where like aliens have talked to me. I've had dreams where my dead grandparents have talked to me. I've had dreams where my cat has spoken to me. And, you know, I've had some wacky dreams, and I don't feel like I'm convinced by a dream. If this flying man like had landed on the ground and walked over to me and been like, hi, I'm Jesus, and then just like disappeared, I would have to do a lot of thinking. But even then, I don't think I'd be convinced that was definitely Jesus, because I know, well, the devil would do that kind of thing too, right? So maybe he's lying to me to try and trick me into believing the one false religion.
I mean, if I saw a man descending from the sky, I'm sure I'd be getting my fishing net out and going and trying and catching him in a very Dick Dastardly kind of way, and and trying to do a little bit more investigation, as you said. But yeah, it's certainly an interesting call. We really we've got patrons. You know, we've announced a Patreon before. I want to just announce our top 5 patrons, because, you know, we really do appreciate our patrons. So, Katie, do you want to take us through them?
Yeah. So, number 1 this week is Dinglebury Jackson. Number 2 is AME. Number 3 is Oops, all singularity. That's a good name. Number 4 is Devil Valiant. Number 5 is Calavi Helveti. And an honorable mention this week to Diane Marie Leonard. Thank you very much, everyone. We love you all.
Yeah, we do
especially all
appreciate your
singularity.
patrons, and if you want to get on that patrons list, join up, become a patron, and see how many of the hosts can pronounce your names in as wildly interpreted different ways as we possibly can, because every host seems to have their own way of reading them out, which is fantastic. There's a couple of calls I want to get to. We've not got a great deal of time left. Is there anyone you want to take in particular, Katie?
Well, number 9 would be, I got a very good, easy answer for that, but it's up to you.
Go on, we'll go 9 first, and then I'd really like to take 3 after that if we can.
You can do 3 first if you like.
No, we'll go 9.
Okay.
We are talking to Kat, she, they, North Carolina. Hello.
Hi,
Kat. How's it going?
Very good. How are you?
You want to talk about morality, is that right?
Yeah, the general morality of God, and also like young earth creationism. I just got back from a women's church retreat with my parents, or with my mom and my sister, and it went about like you'd expect, talking to fundamentalists.
So you're an atheist, right?
Yes.
Okay,
and
sounds fun.
I just wanted to I tried talking to them about how God really just isn't moral, and how you can't be just and merciful at the same time, and how his like code of ethics and what he's done in the Bible is just kind of atrocious. But I feel like it just always goes in one ear and out the other.
Right. I think I guess there's different strategies for explaining things to people you disagree with. And it's obviously very different if you're arguing with someone on the internet and when you're arguing with your family. And when your family, like the pros and cons are with your family, in most cases, you can spend a long time working on them. You don't have to convince them in one sitting. But on the other hand, the relationship's more important to you. And if you upset them, it can be more difficult. So I think that's like worth bearing in mind going on these things. Like, a lot of people are very invested in their belief systems, and trying to deconvert them is can be upsetting for them. And I guess always consider that. But in terms of like explaining why God isn't moral, I think like the easiest attack angle on that is really staying super focused on one thing. And they're going to try and change the subject. They're going to try and lead you off in some other route, tell stories, anecdotes, everything. All you want to do is keep focusing on the part in the Bible, in Exodus, everyone at the ACA's favorite part of the Bible, Exodus 21:12 or whatever it is, where it gives the rules for how to treat slaves. And you just need to, like, for most people, you can say, do you personally think that slavery is moral? And like in a sort of abstract strategic sense, it's kind of a checkmate, because they either have to agree that slavery is moral, which is horrific, and you can very easily explain to someone why keeping another human is disgusting. And it's quite easy to, they know that most people are, even someone who might, for the sake of an argument, agree with it, or even maybe some people who do support slavery in some way, they know it's immoral because the vast majority of the world thinks that, and they're aware of it. And so it's very easy to say that is immoral, it's a disgusting position. What if you were the slave? Like, you wouldn't appreciate this. Or the other choice is they have to say, no, I don't think it's moral. And then you can say, well, so what you're saying is your morality is better than your God's. Even if you agree on every other single thing, you disagree on this one thing, and you disagree because you think you are better than it. And then they'll change the subject to say other things. You can just keep going back to it. And no, you think you're more moral than your God. Like, so how can your God be moral? Like, you're a flawed human, and this God is saying something so obviously disgusting. And I mean, there are loads of other parts in it. Like, the thing that convinced me most is about God's condemnation of, gay sex and stuff. But I think the slavery one's just the easiest point to attack on. Have you tried that?
Yeah.
Sorry if you have.
I actually have. I brought up those exact verses to her, and she basically just said that, well, they were keeping slaves anyways, so he just did that to make sure they were treated well. And even whenever I brought up that they're clearly not treated well, she basically said, well, Moses wrote that, Jesus didn't, or God didn't. It was Moses.
I think it's important to just keep going back on it and be like, no, okay, whether they were keeping slaves then or not, like they were doing lots of things. They were, like coveting each other's wives and each other's oxes. And God said, hey, this is not on. You must stop it. And God is serious because one time he flooded the entire world because people were not behaving. God doesn't mess around. He is not prepared to compromise on human morality. He says what he thinks, and he says, you shall respect me. You shall respect your parents. This is a strict rule. And then he's like, oh, and slaves? Yeah, do what you want, really. I mean, just don't kill them. That's just
yeah.
It's not a good argument, is it? And they can say, oh no, because it was different in those times. It's like, this is God. It's an eternal being, and God has problems with some things humans do. God has specifically said, do not lay with a man as you lay with a woman. He said that. He made that rule because people were doing it. People were having sleepovers all over the shop. And then people were having slaves, and he's like, yeah.
Yeah, I think, my take is very, very similar, Kat, but I don't go to the slavery thing. I've got a different go-to. And that's Numbers 31, where God himself in the text, it's not anyone else, it's God who gives Moses the clear instruction to destroy the Midianites. And Moses goes out, carries out God's instructions, and they don't actually follow all the orders to the letter. And God gets really, really, really pissy about it. And he actually sends them back out to finish the job because they've not done it all. So they kill, and it's not just, it's all the men, all the women, all the animals. The only people God doesn't want killed are the virgin girls, who were to be taken as spoils of war by the army and by God's invading army. And, that's my kind of go-to, because there's not really that, as you said when you talked to your parents before, about they kind of use that thing of, well, people did that at the time, people kept slaves, and there's not really that excuse in that. This is clear. It's in black and white that God sends people to slaughter an entire kind of people, and he wants the virgin girls kept for himself. And, the word used actually is taf, which specifically relates to a child. And he wants all the female children, all the taf, to be kept as spoils of war. Now, it doesn't specifically say sex slaves, but, it's quite clear that's what it means. Before bringing this verse up, what I'd tend to do is ask if you think, just present this situation but not give the biblical context, and say, if this situation occurred, if an army went out and slaughtered an entire people except for the virgin girls, and they took them for themselves, you don't even have to be so implicit as to say as sex slaves. Just say they took the virgin girls for themselves. It kind of speaks for itself. Do you think that's a moral action? And, I'm absolutely certain that your parents would say, no, that's not moral. And, any army that does that is absolutely immoral. And then point them into this verse, which clearly states this, and just kind of, because they'll then try making excuses about it, and then just try and point out the cognitive dissonance between, when it's not God involved, it's immoral, but when it is God, then suddenly it becomes moral. And just kind of, don't press them, just leave them with that, and then go back a few days later and broach it again and see and see if they've had time to, give them time to think about it and see what they say then. Have you tried any particular methods yourself?
Yeah, so you sound exactly like me last night whenever I was talking to my mom and my sister. That's basically all the points I brought up, and many, many more. One of the ones was Numbers 31, 44 through 46, where it basically says that, they keep the virgin girls for themselves. And basically, she read the chapter, and she was like, actually, God told them to kill all of them. So Moses told them that they could keep the virgins. So, and God was mad at them for that. So,
but Moses told them on God's orders.
Something they approve of.
I'd really
so
dig down into the text.
Also,
and
the
highlight.
murder's bad. Like,
Yeah,
oh,
get a
that's all right. He
highlighter
just
out
said
and-
slaughter the girls instead of rape them. Oh, that's fine then. Oh,
that's
God's
what
moral
I
after all.
told her, like-
You've convinced me.
What a jolly
Yeah,
nice lad this
basically.
God is.
My exact words were like, in trying to avoid like justifying child rape, you're now trying to justify genocide of an entire people. And they basically said those people had a chance to repent, and they chose to be evil, and they were just completely evil, all of them, and there wasn't a single person that was good in the city, so it was good for them to all be killed.
Maybe say, so you, Kat, have had a chance to repent and you haven't. What would happen if God's army turned up and genocided you in front of her? Would she just be like, oh, well, Kat had a chance to repent, fuck her? Like, or would she be like, hey, no, that's
One
not
time
fair
I
because
asked
I know
my
I'm going to win
dad-
my daughter back. Sorry?
My dad actually stopped talking to me for a while after I like came out as gay. They started like accepting me again once I like started dating someone who they think is a guy. And I was talking to my dad like, would you literally kill me if I was like born in the other culture where like, you know, because it says right here that I deserve the death penalty, but he's like, oh, that was back then. And I was like, well, what if we were back then? And he's like, I probably couldn't do it, but yeah, it would be the right thing to do. So
Man, Christians say the nicest things, don't they? There's no love like Christian love.
yeah, my sister called me an abomination for being gay. And they, after I told them my many points about why I believe in evolution, my sister just goes, well, I know what the real problem is. You're mad at God. You have been for years.
Yeah, they love saying that, and they're kind of used to people saying, "No, I'm not mad at God. I just don't have any." Like, I'm mad at God. If God's real, then he's a fucking prick. Like, I'll take him on in the marketplace of ideas. Genocide is bad. Like, I'll take you on, God. Yeah, it is very difficult to argue with, especially with people who are more set in their ways and their entire like society and the day-to-day life and everything is so entrenched in this. If just like as someone, especially if you live in like a fundamentalist family, as someone who is gay, in one sense you've got less to lose, and that's not to say that it's not more painful, because obviously you're kind of forced out of it because something you are is incompatible with the belief system, but it means that you have some kind of benefit to dropping these beliefs. They don't in the same way, and you would hope that they could drop their beliefs for their daughter or their child, but you know, it is kind of depressing. But I do feel like sometimes it's very easy for them to say things like it's obviously very harmful and disgusting of them to say like, oh well, it would be the right thing to kill you, like, oh you know, genocide is fine because they didn't repent or something. But the reality is that likely they couldn't do that if they're actually pushed to it, and if they're actually made to engage their emotions rather than, like, there's this kind of idea of a thought terminating cliche where you just say something that to you is an excuse enough that you don't have to engage your brain and you don't have to engage your emotions. And like a classic example of that in this kind of context is saying, oh well, it was different then. Like, what does that mean? That does, so what? You're saying that God's morality has changed? Like, obviously it's not consistent, but all that's important for them is they have a little one-liner to say. And if you say, oh, so do you agree if God just came and killed me? They'll just be like, oh well, it's the morally right thing to do, whatever. But then if you can just be like, stop, no, I'm not trying to just have an argument with you here for the sake of it, and I'm like, whether I'm angry at God or not doesn't really matter. What I want to know is, would you really be okay with like your child being killed for not believing this thing? Like, is that really try and emotionally engage with me on this? And you know, the likelihood is that you will get upset because you've chosen to emotionally engage, and they will try and shut off from emotionally engaging, because if they were to emotionally engage, then it would be incredibly painful for them, because they would be having to face up to, firstly, their, you know, the idea of their child being killed for something, but secondly, this whole kind of worldview they've got that says everything is nice and fits together and works. and it's built on their entire life, and actually there's a huge hole in it, and it's really painful. So I don't know, it's horrible, but I guess my main advice to changing people's minds is it doesn't happen overnight. It takes years and it takes multiple different approaches, and to just not burn yourself out on it. If engaging emotionally with them is hurting you, then take a break, because you know, they've got better defenses for this than you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Katie.
Yeah,
I
and I
think
was just
we
on
should
like
emphasize.
sorry.
Sorry, Kat, go on.
Oh, yeah, I just got back from like a women's retreat with them because I really wanted to spend time with them because they are good people whenever we're not discussing religion. And I did have fun, but the whole theme was that you were broken and you need to be healed by Jesus. And they were just like bringing up people's traumas and trying to get people like emotional about things. And they had mentioned like a mother who has a daughter who's astray from Christ. And of course, that got my mom crying. And I'm like, don't you see that they're just trying to get you to feel broken so you think you need saving? But it just did not get through. And when I say they're fundamental in their beliefs, like my mom teaches young earth creationism at like a homeschool classes, and also teaches me and all of my 12 siblings homeschool young earth creationism. We have lifetime passes to the Creation Museum. I've been there like 3 or 4 times in my life.
A lifetime
that
pass
is
to the
intense.
Creationist Museum. That's a gift to give someone, isn't it? I think, you know, emphasize your relationship, your particular relationship, and you know, let them know that you love them, and even though you disagree with them, you know, you still love them, and let them see that you're a good person, regardless of anything else. And you know, don't you know. I'm not saying don't point out the you know, God is immoral, because God is immoral, and there's nothing wrong with pointing that out. But I wouldn't so much I mean, in your case, I don't think that's the primary concern. I don't think that's the be all and end all of kind of pointing stuff like that out, because they're going to see that as combative. And I'd just really concentrate on your relationship with them and showing that you, as an atheist, as a non-straight person, is somebody who's a good person, and you're a good person, and in their moral system, what they consider good moral behavior, you can actually do that. You know, the way you conduct yourself with people is moral in their eyes, but you just have this different outlook, and you have this different attraction to what they consider normative. And you know, I'd push down that route, you know, and kind of get them to accept you for who you are. And I think that will have much more impact than kind of trying to get them to see God as immoral. And I think, you know, I think in time, showing that you're a good person and showing that you still care about them, that will have much more of a transformative action on them and of their view of other people, than trying to push this line that God is immoral.
Yeah, winning people over by like exposure it does work better than rational arguments, because humans aren't very rational. And even other things you can do as well as yourself. You can, you know, when there's someone, it's like, oh, this person's given a load of money to charity, or oh, this person's, you know, done this amazing moral thing. Just be like, oh, they're an atheist. And then just change the subject.
Yeah.
And when they start realizing that atheists are normal, they'll be more inclined to be like, oh, okay, well, maybe our child isn't the worst person on earth, and then there might be one over that way.
Yeah, Kat, we really appreciate your call. Sorry, Kat, I'm going to give you the last word. We are pushing up to the end of the show. I'm going to give you the last word, and then we're going to let you go. But we really, really do appreciate your call.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't see them super often. I don't live with them, but I do see them sometimes, and they still are nice people, and I really do care for them. I just, God being immoral was the first thing I came up with, but I do really try to show them through my actions that I can just still be a good person without their religion.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's definitely the way to go with it. Listen, we do appreciate your call. It's been fantastic talking to you. Please call back anytime you want to talk to us, and we'll speak to you again hopefully. So, Katie, we are coming up on the end of the show. We've got a couple of calls left in the call queue. I think we're going to take them off air because we are pushing quite late now on the old on the old show front. We've had some fantastic calls this week.
Yeah, great.
We've also got a question, and it's a new feature we're going to do. And the question for this week is, what weird ritual would you use if you invented your own religion? So tune in next week to hear the top 3 answers. Okay, so there's lots of different ways to support us. Below in the chat, we have a fundraiser. 100% of the proceeds go directly to the ACA. YouTube does not charge any fees for that. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel and become a member. Click the join button below the video. You can also support us on Patreon at tiny.cc/PatreonTH. We now have a channel that houses all of the shows on the ACA in audio podcast form. Visit tiny.cc/AEN podcasts, and you can become part of the Talk Heathen community in our fan-run Facebook page at tiny.cc/FBTHG. And as you've seen, we do get callers who come from those Facebook groups, and it's fantastic when we get a chance to talk to those people
Shout out to
live on
Darius.
air.
Darius actually sent a super sticker declaring victory, so I like how cheeky he was.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get to talk to Darius again in the future. You can become a part of the Talk Heathen community in our fan room Facebook page at tiny.cc/FBTHG. And if you would like to continue the discussion after the show, join us in ACD, our fan run Discord server at tiny.cc/ACA Discord. Also, make sure to check out the newest version of the ACA show, The Nonprofits, which will air at 3 p.m. Central Time today at tiny.cc/YTNP. Right, we've got some fantastic people who do all the hard work behind the scenes while me and Katie just sit here and talk shit to everybody. Let's go and have a look at the crew cam and see the actual hard workers in the atheist community of Austin. There they are, look. We love them. Crew Cat especially doing the most work, as is obvious by that shot there. And obviously, we thank you, the viewers. You are the most important people. You are the ones who, keep us going. You're the ones who call in and talk to us. And you're the ones that we really, really love. You're the ones that you support the show. You keep us going. And, whether or not you believe, in fact, if you are an essential worker, we want to thank you because, we've had a tough couple of years. And you've heard this a lot from the ACA show hosts before, but I'm new, so I'm going to repeat it. We've had a tough couple of years. And as an essential worker myself, and having been through that and done all that hard work when everyone else was quarantining and going out into the community and carrying on working, and I know how important it is, and give myself a little pat on the back. And all the other essential workers out there, you've done a really, really good job. We do appreciate the work you do, and we want to thank you. And it don't matter whether you're religious or not religious. You've put your life on the line for people, and we do appreciate it. If you don't believe, this is your community. We're here for you. We do have those Facebook groups. We have the Discord groups. Go there, and there are people there if you want to ask questions, like a couple of the callers have done tonight about how to speak to people. We can go there. We can go there. You can go there, and there are the people there who will talk to you. We do have one final super chat from M. Doug for £5. Who says it's been a mighty show, not just any old show, a mighty show. So thank you very much, M. Doug, for your super chat. We've got the love rings. Let's get those love rings out there. Get them out to the people. Do the magic hands. Get the love rings out. So this is my favourite part of the show. Do the love rings. I think we should do a love ring. Both Katie and myself are musicians. I think we should write a love ring song that we could have playing over them. Love rings. You know, if you do believe, we don't hate you.
We're just not convinced.
Have you ever wanted to be a host on an ACA show or be the one calling the shots behind the scenes? Are you in Austin, Texas, or at least Austin adjacent? Well, on Saturday, February 25th, make your way down to the Free Thought Library because we'll be holding open auditions for show hosts and orientations for prospective crew members. For those wanting to be hosts, you'll be able to sit in the studio where our shows are broadcast and we'll put you through your paces to see if you can be one of the new personalities of the ACA. For future crew members, you'll get hands-on experience using the equipment used for broadcast and will help us record the host auditions. If you've ever dreamed of being part of the ACA productions, then this is your chance to show us what you've got. This event is free. For more information and registration, visit tiny.cc/ACA auditions.